Hello and welcome to episode 34 of Shockwaves. Happy New Year, folks.
Happy 2017.
Holy smokes, we survived. This is it. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Galluzzo. I'm sitting here with Mr. Elric Kane.
Hey, Rob.
Back to number two introduction. You can't even contain yourself. What's the matter?
Welcome back to the deep end of horror.
See, I'm proud of you. I'm trying to get him to say more.
You guys are trying to put me in the position of saying something bad so you can skip me again.
Right.
I'm not going to be your fall guy.
Slip up. Come on.
This is 2017. This is Trump's America. I'm going to be clean living. I'm straight edge now.
Elric, we're getting too political.
Oh, wait, I just finished my Red Stripe beer.
Also with us, Rebekah McKendry.
Hey, guys. What's up?
Hi. And Mr. Ryan Turek.
Howdy.
Howdy. All righty. Holy smokes. How do we get back into this? I feel like we're a little rusty. It's been a little while.
It has been a while. It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah.
The first question I was going to ask
Well,
you
how
all.
was everybody's break? How was the holidays?
Oh, just great.
It was most pleasant.
Just great.
Yeah, I worked the whole time.
Yeah, what break?
Yeah. When you run a horror website, you don't really
folks.
get to stop because the site doesn't shut down. So it's still
Ryan did.
No rest
Ryan
of the wicked
did.
when you run the web.
I'd play horror board games with Ryan, and then I get
right.
depressed at midnight, and he's like, "Why are you sad?" I was like, "Because I got to go home and write articles for tomorrow."
No, it was
never ends.
It was
refreshing 2
Christmas
weeks off.
Day, and I was texting Greg to find out what videos we had for the next day because we had pre-roll running, and I was like, "Oh well, we have to get the ad campaign satisfied." And then I was like,
Listen,
and
do us a
this is my
favor. Just
job.
click on everything on the site. Don't even read it. We don't care. It'll just make our lives easier.
People really
Just
look up that stuff at Christmas?
re-download every episode.
Sure.
Surprisingly, Christmas was a really good time for the website because everybody's home, and we saw a surge Christmas Eve day. We had a couple things go viral on the site. Just
I'd like to think
everybody's
it's because
home.
we had Billy and Ricky from
Yeah,
Sound.
that's
That's the
And I
reason.
would also like to think that it was because of our year-end wrap-up, which
was fun.
a lot of people,
Which
did really well.
turn to the web, especially when they're entertainment-based, to check out the top 10s, best films of the year, best horror movies of the year, and I'm actually really proud of that episode, guys.
That was a good
Me
one.
too.
I actually
Really
think that
great.
was one of the best. And actually, that was my first question to you guys. Did you guys have any, because I had one, regrets?
I did.
Nope.
Post that
Yeah.
just in the
What's
last
done
few
is done,
days.
Elric.
No,
We're
but I mean
grown-ups.
movies that you thought about since and go, you know what, that movie is really freaking good.
What almost made your top 10 that you regretted?
It was at the
Is that
time.
what
It
you're
wasn't even
thinking?
close. But every time I've heard any show that talks about this movie, I go, "Yeah, you're right. That movie, 10 Cloverfield Lane, man." I keep going.
That was my
I'm
number one.
I totally fucked up.
Yeah.
You did.
By leaving it off. It's a great
Whatever.
movie.
No, mine, and it wasn't because I was reconsidering, but when we did our list, I had not seen Under the Shadow yet
right.
because it had not fully released, and I never got a screener
I
of
loved
it.
your post. You're like,
I
"Hey,
know.
everybody, I saw it in the show. It's good." I was like, Bekah.
Exactly. But when we did the episode, because we did it 3 weeks before Christmas, and
Yeah.
it didn't release until right before Christmas, and I never got a screener, so I just never saw that one. And then I finally watched it on the day it came to VOD, and I was like, "Fuck, this would have been on my top 10 list." So
Wait, can I just check your,
it
because you're
went on
such
my
a
top 10
journalist,
list.
when you say it hadn't released, do you mean no one had sent it to you for free? Because I paid for it about 5 weeks
It was
before
on
that.
It was
VOD.
at the theater.
Oh, okay. I
but
saw it on Amazon.
It
I
was
think.
at the
Amazon.
theater. No, I didn't get to see it until it came to Amazon, which is where
No,
I
I saw it on Amazon.
Did you buy it? Because
Yeah.
I don't do where it costs $17. I wait
okay.
for it to go $7.99, and then
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, it
there.
was $7.99 when
Yeah.
I went. I don't know. Becca, I think you're too used to free stuff.
No!
Your journalistic high tower.
Oh, man.
Oh man.
But anyway, I
well,
loved it, and it ended up on my top 10 list for the site.
I want to say thanks to all the listeners who, over the time that we've been off, that chimed in and wrote reviews on iTunes and gave some new star ratings, because I noticed that it grew significantly over the break, and there were new reviews and new thoughts and opinions. And there was one that I took to heart in which someone had said, "Could you please properly introduce your guest, because we kind of jump in as if we've already been in mid-conversation and we're like, oh yeah, so yeah, we got this person." And I was like, yes, you're absolutely right. So I would like to
Better at the
lay
intros.
that on the
Okay.
table.
All right.
But thank you very much, listeners. That means a lot. And I think in 2017 we've got some big things in the works.
Yeah.
And little bit of travel, hopefully, and some other cool stuff. So,
do we
live
dare
stuff,
reveal
too.
the format thing? I mean, you'll know if you downloaded this episode.
Yeah, I think let's do it, guys. We're going back to one episode.
I love how you didn't give them any choice, but I'm all for it. I'm all for
We
it.
could always edit.
Yeah. I think we should go back to the one episode thing.
Yeah, we're look, we were trying to figure out what was best, and we thought, we hear every criticism you could think of. It's too long, it's too short, this and that, So we thought we'd give it a shot, splitting up the show, because certain people love the guests, certain people love just hearing us talk about what we've seen. I guess we didn't really. The thing that surprised us is how much they both go so hand in hand.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the feedback we got kind of going into the break. A lot of people saying, well, if I don't know your guest, I will stick around from the first half because I'm just curious.
And I take that one to heart because I think that's a great way for us to introduce somebody to somebody they might not have listened to that interview.
Yeah.
Exactly.
To their work. Because, I'm exactly the same way. I didn't think about that, how we listen to podcasts.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I realized, I skip whole episodes of shows I love because I don't know who the person is.
And-
we're like Rob said, we're figuring it out, and I figure, it's like we're kind of hanging the figurative sign over Shockwaves that says "Pardon our dust." We're still figuring our shit out, and
so cute,
and
Ryan.
roll with us,
So
Don't
probably
mind the
next week
sign.
we'll be back to the single format.
we're going to screw with you.
Or an I-beam will drop on my head and I'll be dead. And then you guys will-
Anything could happen, right?
Well, obviously, we've seen a lot. What we're going to do at some point in this episode is this is actually going to be our most anticipated of 2017. And Bekah's got a list of all the releases that are coming up.
So we're going to go through them.
Yeah.
We're gonna dig through those. But first,
I just
obviously,
realized I left off XX. We need to put that one on.
yes, add that to the queue. But we have seen a lot of films, obviously, because of the break. I mean, me and Elric both kind of said we were going to take a break from horror, which I did. To
I
an
did
extent.
too for a while. I watch a lot of Oscar stuff.
So did
A
I,
lot of
but
screeners.
we always get pulled back in, like The Godfather. But before anything, because we haven't done a show since the New Year's, I think it's important that Ryan and I discuss New Year's Evil. Because I know we both watched it, and I know a lot of people celebrated the New Year with that as well.
Yeah.
What a wacko movie, huh?
It is. What had happened?
Golden Globus explains everything. Like, if you know it's a Golden Globus slasher movie, that should explain everything.
Well, what happened is, like, when I went on break for the holidays, I got sick. So my first 2 days, I was like super ill, and I was like, I'm going to watch everything. So a lot of what you're going to hear, my selections are when I was laid on my sickbed, and New Year's Evil was one of them. So there was in this weird fugue state of like drifting in and out, and I had seen it many times before. But it is a zany, weird movie in which the killer is someone you could just completely make fun of like if I was her on the phone. Basically, the movie is about this TV host who's counting down the clock to New Year's Eve, and she keeps getting these phone calls from a killer who puts in a voice box in his mouth. He holds it up to the telephone in his lips, and he's like, "This is evil."
His name is Evil.
Oh my
And
God,
there's
that's
one
like
point-
totally parodied in Student Bodies.
Yes,
yeah,
probably.
I
yeah.
swear, with the chicken.
Yeah.
And it's literally something you could just bust his balls and be like, "I'm sorry, what did you say, sir?" Because you can't make out what he's saying sometimes.
Right.
It's just so
Also,
ridiculous.
they don't hide him. Like
No.
there's no
There's no
surprise. Like,
mystery.
here's the killer.
The reveal is what his connectivity is to her.
But that's what makes it hilarious.
Yeah,
and that guy's got like a swap. So his goal is to go murder people at the
time
stroke
zone
of-
by time zone.
Yes,
Basically
exactly.
killing people by time zone.
Wow.
But he does it
Why?
all in Hollywood. I don't know, to get back at this radio host.
Yeah,
or whatever.
he's killing everybody that's close to her, and he's just selecting people. So imagine for him, the stakes are, shit, I'm offering a promise to the authorities and my victim that I need to kill everybody on the dot. So this poor guy is hustling his ass
they make
to make sure he gets to his victim.
They build a suspense around the killer having to kill people.
If I don't get to the airport
Yeah.
by 2 o'clock, I'll
There's-
never kill
there's
someone.
Wait, so it's
point.
effectively Nick of Time, but with Johnny Depp as a killer.
Have you not seen this?
No, I've never
oh
seen
my
it.
God!
I mean, I know
Oh,
it.
It's
Every year
amazing.
I see it comes on
Yeah,
TCM,
because
I'm
there's
like,
one where he picks up a girl at a bar, and it's hilarious because it's 1980, so just on the cusp of the 70s. So he goes to a bar with like a gold chain and a mustache as his disguise, and he's like, "I gotta hurry, I got a party at Eric
know.
Estrada's."
Just kill someone in the airport during his layovers. I
Well,
mean,
it had
like,
to be-
wouldn't
That would be
simplify
that would
it?
make sense, but no, he's
pretty
got to
funny.
tape record it and then call in again.
yeah.
It's very elaborate.
It's very, and you know what? In the hour I mean, if you look at it, there's a really good satire movie out of this. But if you look at it in the hour, he does have to kill the victim. Then he's got to dispose the body. He's got to make sure he gets to a phone, plays the recording of that person's death, then find the next person, drive to their location, somehow convince them to go with him.
He's driving to this?
Oh, he's driving all over. He's driving all over Los Angeles.
Slasher?
Oh, wait, it's all in Los Angeles, but I thought it was time zones. Oh, wait, these people are just from different time zones?
No. They're in L.A.
Yes.
So his first kill is at like
New York time.
New York time. 9 o'clock
Okay,
LA time.
I thought he was actually
10 o'clock.
traveling
No,
to
that would
each
be
time
amazing.
zone. I want to make that movie, guys.
That's a Nightfire too.
Yeah, there you go. And then the other thing, I wrote an article about it last year just because he wears like 4 goofy masks throughout the whole movie. So I'm like, what's your favorite mask that Evil wore? Because the most disturbing is Dick Van Dyke one is kind of the funny one. But it's quite a feature.
Rob, how'd that article do?
Not well.
More people need to watch that.
You haven't even seen New Year's Evil, so there you go. So now
That's
go
pretty
vote.
Funny. Yeah, okay, I'll watch it.
But the movie's a trip.
Yeah.
I have to check it out.
Yeah, and it played at the New Beverly at midnight on New Year's Eve. And I'm like, what lunatics went to see this? And I saw like Jackson Stewart.
Of course.
Wow.
That's how they ushered in the new year. That's
What am I
amazing.
saying? I put together a puzzle on New Year's Eve. That was
Nice.
like it. So
Gotta do what you gotta do.
yeah.
All right, so why don't we go one around the table of what we've seen? Elric, kick us off.
Well, I would just before I won't go in depth, but the what was it? The New Beverly. Ryan was also there. They had Black Christmas, Silent Night. It was right after our last show.
Yeah.
Silent Night and Black Xmas, which I stayed for like the first half an hour. It's still fun to watch that part, but it's getting a little late. But man, Black Christmas I had never seen on the big screen. And,
so great.
And that was a perfect
And
print.
it was a good print.
It was gorgeous.
I was afraid that it was going to be the pink print from like last year.
No, they replaced it
great
maybe
print.
2 or 3 years ago. They got a brand new print. Yeah.
I can honestly say, because I haven't watched the film as much as a lot of people, I've probably seen it one time before this, was whenever the chatter of, what's better, this or Halloween, I'm always like, why is it even the conversation with Halloween? And I'm definitely not going to place it necessarily above Halloween, but I totally see why these two films get that. It's treated a lot like Jaws. You know, the killer, the way they don't reveal the killer is so great, and it just keeps you thinking about the movie long after it's over.
And also, character-wise, I mean, it's really tough because Black Christmas is it always moves up to the number one of the best horror movies of all time.
Yeah.
Like I really like neck and neck with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then there's always the discussion of Halloween and which film is better, and like they're neck and neck. Like you said, they're kind of like, because they both have their strengths in terms of suspense. They both have their strengths in terms of charming characters.
Yeah.
And Black Christmas and Halloween both have their fair share of like humor to it, very amiable people to follow. Black Christmas this time around, it was funny watching it and noticing the laughs that are coming from the crowd
cops.
and what lands.
The cops aren't Keystone. They are actually funny, well-drawn individuals.
Yes.
And the one guy who just keeps laughing in the background about
Well, he's the audience.
Which
He
is
really is
an
the
amazing
audience.
moment.
And that's totally Bob Clark's like tryout for Porky's. Like he did those same gags in
Right
Porky's.
after,
But you know what? But I did not go to the screening. I got Scream Factory's Blu-ray, which is fantastic. It's like a flawless restoration. There's so many great features on it. And I had a few people over. We did our own Black Christmas party. And Gara, one of our former guests, he had never seen it before. So it was great to yet again see it through his eyes. But I really do think it's a freaking masterpiece. Just, everything with the characters and the execution of it and all that. But the thing that really stood out to me this time and why I love the movie is because, we all discussed it after, including Gara, who had not seen it and had a lot of questions like, oh, wait, so we don't get the reveal? And it's like, but did he kill the girl in the park? And I'm like, that's what I love about it is there's enough there that every time you watch it, you think you're going to figure out certain things. Right. Like there's got to be a hint that maybe ties him to this alternate story about a girl getting murdered in the park. But there isn't.
Just be a red herring, to take you away from that.
Maybe it was him, maybe it wasn't. You don't know. Yeah. And the fact that we never get a lot of these things answered.
I'll throw another thing that it could be. It could be, not Udo Kier. What's the actor from 2001? He's the boyfriend in this movie.
Art Hinkle? You're thinking?
No, the boyfriend who they think's the killer, the musician.
Oh, the guy, who plays Peter.
His name just escaped me. He's in Haunting of Julie as well. But it's a name like Udo Kier. what if he was full of rage and went to a park and actually killed someone? He's not the killer.
Keir
But what if,
Dullea.
yeah, what if, yeah, Keir Dullea. What if that guy was driven and then he's come back still mad at his girlfriend? I mean, that's the crazy thing about the movie. There are a lot of readings.
You could see it any way you want.
Could point to that. So that was really fantastic. But the funny, interesting one was seeing Silent Night, Deadly Night again, and I had seen it on the big screen not long ago. I feel like that first 15, 20 minutes of that movie is so fucking interesting and dark and like one of the grimmest exploitation movies ever made. And I prefer that movie. Like the comedy of the second half, it is a really fun movie and I enjoyed it a lot. But there's something in that first 20 minutes that after it ended, I was like, I really want to make the prequel of that Santa's Day. That fucked up Santa who goes in there and rapes a woman. There's something so ugly about
That has to be the most miserable movie ever.
It's just so grim.
It really is.
But it made me go, I want to follow him for a day. It's like an Abel Ferrara movie we never saw. And I kind of just became upset. Afterwards, I was looking up his filmography. He's been in tons of stuff, that actor, but there's just something about him. He's just like, he kills someone for what? Like $2.
Party foul.
Toasted.
It's empty.
It's done. Drinks all over the place. Anyway, I thought that was, I had a lot of fun revisiting those. That was kind of the last thing. And then I kind of...
It's like it's funny watching it. You have to really endure the unpleasantness for the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then there's the rewards come, and it was tough this time around because I've seen it year after year after year, but
I mean, it's really in line with Last House and all those kind of movies. That violence that feels real. You're like, oh my god, that is so. But the little baby, there's a baby who's gonna probably you think he's gonna get shot. I mean, it's pretty grim.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was the first thing before the new year. We'll keep spinning around.
Bekah.
Yeah. So let's see here. What do I want to start with? I'll start with She-Devil on Wheels.
Oh boy.
Because for Christmas, for Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Dave knows what a huge Herschel Gordon Lewis fan I am, so he bought me the super fancy 17-disc Arrow
huge
box
thing.
set. Yeah,
That looks amazing.
and so I started working my way through it.
That's a commitment.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I've seen the majority of Herschel Gordon Lewis movies, but while I was working my way through, I've seen a lot of like bikesploitation movies. I, for some reason, thought I had seen She-Devil on Wheels, but I had not seen She-Devil on Wheels. So I watched She-Devil on Wheels. It's standard Herschel Gordon Lewis fare. I mean, like,
All right, I know exactly what that means to me.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
just sold 2 units.
Amazon just saw a
Diabolic.
uptick
Oh,
of
you.
one.
No, it's a fun movie. And it's definitely like, if you like Herschel Gordon Lewis and you tend to like his aesthetic and the fact that the majority of the actresses in this are just a local bike gang that he found
Is that
in
color
Florida.
or black and white?
It's color.
Because I imagine with his fun, the one thing I was thinking about with Blu-ray, his colors are always kind of amazing anyway.
Yeah.
Because the blood is like crazy paint blood. Like
And
it's
in
red
this
paint.
one, like their heads falling off, and
Yeah.
they rip somebody apart with a bike and things like that. So yeah, it's got the
Interesting.
normal standard amount of Herschel Gordon Lewis gore, and it is really like hyper color.
All right.
So yeah, it's fun. The next one I'm drifting onto is Something Weird, which I've never seen as well, which was like his answer to like The Trip and the weird acid films
Yeah,
of
it's a
that
weird
time
one.
period. So I'm excited to see.
And then the company named themselves after that film.
Yes.
That's their logo too.
So I'm pretty psyched. And if you are a Herschel Gordon Lewis fan, I can't recommend the 17-disc box set enough. It's pricey, but it's really good. There's a lot of
we
good
will
stuff
all
on
borrow
there.
from you.
All right, Ryan.
I picked up Code Red's Blu-ray for Just Before Dawn.
Ooh, yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah. That one is Jeff Lieberman's film. It's something that it's a real simplistic kids go off into the woods, kids get hunted down, kids get killed kind of movie. More like 20-somethings. I shouldn't downplay it. But this movie's always stuck with me because one of its simplicity, 2 because of Brad Fidell's score, and 3 because of the kind of haunting atmosphere that Jeff lent to what's lurking out there in the woods.
Yeah.
The first 10 minutes are really interesting because it's these 2 guys who find this like abandoned church, and then all of a sudden he looks up into the roof and there's this person's face just engulfing the hole in the roof and just staring at him. Now imagine walking through an abandoned building and all of a sudden just seeing someone leer at you. You know, it's really in an environment in which you think you're all alone, you know.
Isn't there a strange whistle throughout the
There's a
film?
weird whistle that
weird
kind of
whistle
plays
that they
into
play.
the soundtrack, and then one of the killers ultimately winds up getting a whistle, and it becomes very unnerving. But Greg Henry stars in it, and there's it's a great dynamic of kids. And I don't know, it separated itself from the pack of movies like Madman and some of the other body count movies of the era, just because there's a maturity to the escalation of violence and the reveal as well, because you know you're dealing with these 2 very creepy twin-like brothers, and very subtly you kind of get into the backstory of who they are and what the family dynamic is and all this other stuff. So really, really interesting film. Code Red's Blu-ray looks fantastic.
Yeah. There's 2 cuts too, but I've never. The other one doesn't look as good.
Yeah.
But the main cut
theatrical
looks
is beautiful.
great.
The thing I always remember about that film is like a great reveal to her becoming the final girl.
Yeah,
it's Greg Henry kind of groveling and in the background.
Well,
she just feels powerful. Up. Yeah, it's one of the ones that feels like it almost feels like she read the Carol Clover book and then made that movie, even though it's before.
She feels very substantial compared to a lot of the other females in these films. Like she actually really has some power behind her.
The way they show it.
There's a complete contrast to her, represented by another woman in the film who's a redhead, and she's like constantly like, "Oh, we're gonna
drop the redhead thing, Turek.
Just identifying the character. Just identifying the character.
You've had Friday the 13th Part 2. Move on.
But she's always represented, going, "Oh, I need to get my makeup," and they're like, "We're just sitting around the bonfire, like we're gonna roast some marshmallows. What do you need?" She's like, "No, I gotta look good," And yeah, you're right. Greg Henry is the kind of the male who needs to man up, but he never does. Yeah. And then our final girl dispenses with people in I should say one person in a way that I felt didn't come around or get imitated in horror movies enough.
It's amazing. It's really amazing.
And it wound up being used in Feast.
Oh, that's right.
So I was like, it took us only 20 years.
Well, here's what's fascinating about that. It's funny because you mentioned how this is one of the early slasher movies that deviates from what would become the traditional kind of rules of the slasher. And that's because, I don't know if it was on the commentary or if I just heard Jeff Lieberman at a Q&A. He made this around 79, 78. Like he made it a year or two before it actually came out. So he made a slasher movie before the slasher boom. Like this, I don't see Halloween in this at all. Like that's the only movie that was out.
I think he
Friday the
actually
13th didn't come out yet.
None of that
stuff. Yeah, those did not. These movies that kind of this got lumped in with did not exist yet. So it's fascinating that he made practically a Friday the 13th style movie before Friday the 13th.
Oh, totally. With the kind of crazy Ralph represented by George Kennedy, except in this, George Kennedy isn't a crazy Ralph at all, but he's the man of reason. Yeah. He literally is. He's just telling these kids, don't go up that mountain, don't go do that. And then he winds up having his kind of come around later on.
Great actor. I love George Kennedy.
Yeah. But Just Before Dawn, you guys have to see it. I saw it once on the big screen. I think at I don't know, my memory is blanking, but it was either New Bev or Cinefamily, and it was just like a great experience because there were so many people in the audience that kind of went in expecting your typical camp slasher movie and got something so much more substantial. So
I think, like Rob says, it's probably because it was before.
Yeah,
it's not imitating. It's
it is its own thing. For me, I gotta do a shout out to one of our listeners, Ian West, because he obtained for me the CREEPSHOW 2, the limited edition version that Arrow put out.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Which is great. Look, Arrow put out a version of this, which is still available on Blu-ray. The limited one just comes in a slightly different package, and it includes a comic book. And the comic book is based on the fourth story that George wrote for this that they didn't have the money to shoot. So it's kind of like you're getting an extra CREEPSHOW 2 story that was intended for the movie, but they didn't do it. So it's cool. It's a fun little collector's item. It really sucks how Amazon put this limited version, and canceled everybody's orders because they were limited to like 3,000. So nobody actually got this thing. But anyway, either way, you can get the regular one. And it's, again, this is something I wanted to encourage in our group, is maybe we could do something like this where if there's certain things that are hard to find or whatever, let's like look out for each other. Cause I just kind of was like, oh, I'm bummed I couldn't find it. And Ian's in our group and said, hey, I work, at one of these stores and we have a couple copies. So I'm like, great, send me one. That'd be amazing. So I did get it. I revisited it. CREEPSHOW 1 is its own thing. It is, you can't compare anything to CREEPSHOW. Oh, you're wearing a shirt.
CREEPSHOW.
But I still love CREEPSHOW 2.
The second two stories, I love both of them.
They're great. Now, this
Can I ask you guys something?
Yes.
Just what is the appeal to episode number 1?
Oh, the first
what?
film?
This is the first time I've actually, and I'm going to tell you, because as a kid growing up, I never liked the first one, which is the Indian one.
Yeah.
with George Kennedy,
old Chief
ironically.
Oh, that's what you're talking about?
The
Old Chief
Indian,
Woodenhead.
Oh, I thought you were
Chief
talking about
Woodenhead.
Creepshow.
No,
1
no,
for a
I'm
second.
talking
I was
about
like, what
the first segment of Creepshow
Dude,
2.
it's one of my least favorite segments of any.
And here's the
for
thing:
me,
I
personally.
normally agree with that. This was the first time ever it actually clicked with me. It's still my least favorite of the 3 in Creepshow 2, but
Who loved it? Who came on our show? Somebody, it's their favorite. Was it? Oh, the anthology episode we did back on Killer PD.
Oh, yeah. So
one
somebody
of
said
one
that.
of the 2 guests.
But you know what?
loved that episode.
It actually played. Well, first of all, the Blu-ray looks. I don't know. I can't believe these movies get restored and the way they do. But it looks flawless. And you know what it was? It just played for the first time ever. I think because as a younger kid, you want a faster pace in certain stories.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, the story played for me this time very much like a Stephen King story. Like they really like harped this little old couple, which is George Kennedy and his wife, and how like this older Indian gentleman is indebted to them. And so I kind of like get into it so that you will feel bad if something bad happens to them. And I already knew that that's where it was going. And then the kids that show up, one of them's got the main Indian kid who is like, I'm going to Hollywood with this hair to be a star or whatever. He's like, I'm better looking than that guy, which is hilarious because as I was watching, I was like, what happened to that dude? Did he go to Hollywood to become a star? And sure enough, he's in Fight Club. He is his name was Robert Paulson guy.
Yeah.
I saw your post about that.
I was
And
so
he's
excited.
He's in Alien 3 as well.
Alien 3, what's his name? Holt McCanley, which is pretty funny.
How did the effects look in the wave episode of the raft?
Look,
In HD, I'm just curious.
It looks fine. I mean, you could tell that it is what it is, which is a garbage bag
I
with
always
latex
loved
on
that,
it.
though. I love that.
But I still loved it. I still think it plays like a lot of fun. And you know what? The special features are fantastic. Some of them are new, some of them are old. But really, this was like one of the first. Intruder is the first K&B gig as K&B, but they came straight from Evil Dead 2 to do Creepshow 2. And the original effects guy kind of got fired in the middle of it. So the Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger had to kind of step up and like just figure this shit out. And for that, it's kind of amazing that that they were able to pull off what they did for this movie. And I still love, Thanks for the Ride.
I think that's
That's the
hilarious.
best
One of the
one.
best.
There's a new interview with that guy, the hitchhiker, and I was like, there he is. Because it was funny. I was telling my roommate Dave, this was the Creepshow 2 I remember distinctly, and maybe some of you out there used to do this. I'd watch late night horror movie on cable, HBO, when my parents weren't looking, and I'd have the remote in my hand. And what I would do is I'd flip up and down really fast because I wanted to miss the scare, but come back after it. So I remember, Thanks for the Ride, ladies, the one that I kept like skimming to another channel and then coming back because I wanted to miss the reveal, but come back when he was already
kind of
there.
Softcore vibe.
Yeah, I was trying to like soften it. So that's what I remember about that movie. But I love it. And again, this is for another debate. Arrow does a great job. Their stuff's really pricey. But people are kind of saying, well, they're kind of the Criterion of it, which is the same with Scream Factory. There's so many people doing this stuff now that is it worth the retail price? I don't know, but they did a really stellar job on this. So
Yeah,
if you love the movie, sure.
If you love the movie, like I sprung for the Slugs one just because
Yes.
that was so meaningful for me. I did the H.G. Lewis. Shut up, Kane.
You said that like you made love to it. I don't know.
I
sprung for slugs.
Sprung for slugs because it's meaningful. It meant something.
No, I've always really liked that movie. Like I've read the books behind
That's a
Slugs,
cool movie.
Breeding
Right.
Ground, and all of the other ones. So yeah, I mean, like I sprung for that one.
I guess it's up to, it's kind of like that thing like, oh, Hollywood should stop making blockbusters. Like, well, you'd have to stop paying for them
Yeah.
if you wanted Hollywood. So it's the same thing. If they make them and they make money back, then I guess we'll keep buying them.
Right. If it's worth it to you.
worth it to you.
I mean, that's the weird thing. But
There's a lot I don't buy anymore like that,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Because
gotten
just
really picky. Well, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago about my collection. Like, it must fit on one bookcase now, is my rule.
No, I'm out of
but,
control. I can't. I
yeah,
mean,
Rob's
but it's
his
just
living
but it's
room
harder.
is his collection.
It's harder because there's so many and it's so expensive now. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to that. It's like when there was just Scream Factory, I'd pretty much buy everything they put out, even if I never heard of it because I'm like, well, it's part of their brand. But now there's so many competing brands that it's a little bit. You got to be a little.
But also,
choosier.
Scream Factory is at a pretty good price point for a lot of their stuff for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Scream Factory stuff, even if I haven't heard of it, I'll sometimes pick it up or borrow it from Rob just because it's something. If Scream Factory is putting it out, I want to see it. But if Arrow is doing like some giant release of like some slasher I've never heard of.
Microwave Massacre.
Right, Microwave
The
Massacre.
Mutilator. Come on, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, that was good.
I
Blood
like
Rage.
the
I've just
Mutilator. Okay, Blood Rage.
I've been doing a lot of blind buying when it comes to Arrow. Just
Yeah.
Mutilator, Blood Rage. I had never seen those films, but I'm glad I did because once I saw them,
Blood
I was
Rage
like,
is still
okay,
one of the best finds of the last couple of years, I think, in terms of seeing with people, like you said, by yourself, maybe not.
But which is weird, at the same time, it's funny because over the break I was like thinking about, some of the things I want to kind of fill into my collection collection, you know, maybe upgrade Carrie, maybe upgrade Child's Play, maybe upgrade The Thing. The Thing I do need to do, but because when I see the prices on those, I go, I own these. I'll catch
the
up to them
$10
later down the road. You know?
On Blu-ray, but I want to get that one too.
Yeah.
I went to one of my favorite, pretty much my favorite movie at all, The Shining on 35 millimeter. Hadn't seen it in a long time. Saw it at the New Bev just before. And the cool thing about it is, it was something we talked about a little bit. I was raised on the international cut. You know, I grew up in New Zealand, saw it on TV, and I was starting to wonder what is the big difference, because I saw the American cut only when I was about 21, and it felt long and clunky to me in comparison. So I started wondering, what are the big differences between them? Watching it this time, I didn't feel that way. In fact, I've flipped it. The foreign, so the actual word is it's one of the only times in history both are director cuts. So usually you have a director's cut and a studio cut. Stanley basically said to himself, you know what? It played in America. It's 20 minutes longer, almost 22 minutes longer. And then when it was going to go to Europe, I hate to say it, all our American listeners, but he really kind of said, I think European listeners are going to be a little smart, watchers or viewers are a little smarter in terms of how they view cinema, because they've been growing up on art films. I think I can cut a lot of the exposition out of this film, and they're still going to
I had no idea there was two cuts to this.
Yeah, totally different cuts. But here's the shocking part. This blew me away that my friend Webb, who listens, pointed out. The version that they are streaming right now on Netflix is the fucking international. It's not even the longer, which is just crazy in America that they're not screening the American. It's the 100-minute version. And I was like, what? That's what
What's
they're
on the
using
Blu-ray?
for Netflix?
The longer cut?
It's the longer cut.
Okay.
And you might be able to get both. In England, obviously it's the international. So, but one of the big differences, there's lots of little things. There's a couple Scatman things that I think are better still out when he's on the move to get there, because it just slows down the narrative. Him in a plane, who gives a fuck, you know? You're in a plane, he just talks to the lady. But there's one thing at the start where Danny talks to the psychiatrist, and she's witnessed him after he's had his first, and Danny isn't here kind of moment, his freak out, his flashes of Jack and The Shining, and your lady, Shelley, who I'm kind of almost coming around.
What?
I gotta say, watching
right?
this screening, I was
On the
going,
big
there's
screen?
something about it. But what that scene...
Elric, she's so not your type.
I know, she's
man.
not my type. But in that scene, the scene grounds the whole movie to the point where it's so naturalistic, and she's basically defending Jack, lying for Jack, who's basically abused his kid. And there's somebody pointed out that the way the kid's on the bed and he's kind of got his hands over his genitalia a little bit and he's like looking very fragile. There has been people who have speculated that it's actually perhaps a sexual, he might have had some sort of sexual assault on his own child, which I don't know if I buy or not, but they're talking about that's where Danny comes from in the mouth and all this kind of crazy stuff. Shining's great because you can project onto it just like 1, 2, 3. But that one scene was so grounding that I realize now, while the international might be like pure cinema and all the things I like about it, I actually think the international one now grounds the movie in just a little more realism that it probably needs, because Jack's performance, he's allowed to just go so untethered that if you don't have something to ground it up front, maybe there's just not quite enough there. So I really enjoyed that. There's my friend Webb also posted in our group the article pointing out all the scene differences. So it's on there, and it's really fun to look at because you go, oh yeah, I noticed some, you won't notice others. But it's bonkers that Netflix is playing an international version versus an American.
I'll have to check that out.
Very surprising, but it's still just a great movie. The scenes that are horror sequences, like really horror sequences, are just still unparalleled to me. You know, Jack in the bathtub scene, Jack killing Scatman. There are moments where the cutting and the sound design are just really astounding. So that was a great one to revisit. I got a couple 80s slashers, but let's keep going around.
Bekah?
Excellent. I finally saw, and I did not rush to see this one before we did our top 10 lists because I knew it probably was not going to be in my top 10, which it was not. I finally saw Neon Demon, which I remember Elric saying that he did not like it when we all thought he would like it.
Didn't love it, yeah.
I thought I would really, really hate this movie, and there are parts of it I really liked. It still wouldn't have made my top 10 list, but there were parts of it that I was like, I really like what you did there. And of course, it's shot beautifully. Like, it looks like a painting the whole time. But yeah,
have you ever had a film where your expectations, like in a story level, not expectations like, oh, this will be good, is what ruined the film for you? Like, you came in thinking...
I would actually own up to it. In this instance, my expectations and what I had read and what I was reporting on when I was at Shock to Drop ruined this movie.
Yeah,
because I expected something completely different.
Even halfway through, I was going, oh, I can't wait till the demon and the thing happens.
That's
and then
exactly
it never happened, so I left going, oh, but I wanted that movie. I think if I revisit it, I won't have that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's going to be a much better film.
I need some time.
And I think that's why I had to wait a while before I saw it, because I remember covering this movie at Fangoria when I was still there, like back a couple of years ago. And I remember when it finally came out and everybody would be like, there's really no horror to it. There's no demon. She doesn't go demonic. There's nothing scary. It's not really a horror film. And so that's why
it definitely is a horror film. I mean, there's so much cannibalism, necrophilia, all sorts
gets
of
crazy. But I also remember a lot of people saying, like, I don't know if I like what it's saying about models. I don't know if I like what it's saying about lesbians. I mean, like, there's a lot of like weird interpretations.
Whatever Jenna Malone's doing. What the hell is that?
I love what Jenna Malone was doing. That's my favorite thing in the movie. I'll watch her all day long.
Yeah, like there was so much being said about it at the time that I'm glad I didn't see it then, because I probably would have hated it. Whereas now when I saw it, I was still like, not my fave, but there was a lot I liked in it.
You know, it's interesting. That film has been showing up on a lot of top 10 lists that are non-horror more than it's appeared on horror lists of major podcasts. I've been just catching up on all the mainstream film spotting and things, and it's on all these like really respectable critics. It'll be the only horror-ish thing. I'm like, oh, interesting. They're taking that seriously, but not even more than The Witch to an extent, which shocks me because The Witch is like really a masterwork. Right.
I really want to ask a model if that's what it's like, because I see these movies about the industry and I'm able to pick through and be like, okay, well, that's kind of accurate. No, that doesn't happen. Well, maybe that only happens in like porn. Yeah. But then I watch this and I know nothing about the industry and I'm like, I must know. So yeah, it was kind of a fascinating glimpse for me.
Nice.
Ryan?
I caught up to a little film called Lake Nowhere, which is tantamount to the experience I got watching WNUF Halloween special, which was, hey, Ryan, check this thing out. I'm going to put it on your lap. You're going to put it in the VCR or in the DVD player, and you're going to watch it. And I got kind of caught up in it, like WNUF, which is, imagine you found something that is in a lost broadcast, of a new special. Lake Nowhere is the lost slasher film that you did not know existed until now.
When did this come out?
It came out in 2014. It's 50 minutes long, so it doesn't overstay its welcome, thank God.
How does that even classify as a feature film?
No. I mean, maybe it's not. You can't call it a short.
I mean, did it get like a full DVD release? I'm asking.
It did get a DVD.
Most distribution companies won't talk to you unless you're over. I think it's 72 minutes. There's a rule.
Yeah, Brink Vision put it out. Okay. So I discovered it on Shudder. Someone had told me about it.
It's on Shudder.
It's on Shudder.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So basically, the concept of Lake Nowhere is you imagine you're watching a VHS, except this VHS is heavily worn, and Lake Nowhere is the recording over whatever else was being recorded on that VHS at the time. So when you begin, you're seeing some 80s commercial, and it's like a fake commercial, like WNUF.
Cool. Yeah, I like that.
And then you get a fake trailer for a movie, and then you get the coming attraction, and then you get the feature presentation. And the feature presentation is super simple. I was like really addicted to kids going up to a cabin in the woods and getting killed this winter. But it's basically a bunch of kids go out to a cabin in the woods. A killer comes out of this lake and then kills them, but there's like a little supernatural element to it. But every once in a while, during heightened moments of suspense, the tracking will get all off, and then all of a sudden it'll click over to like an older piece of the programming, whatever it was recording over. So you get like what looks like somebody's home movie or another movie altogether. And this, because of a 50-minute running time, it does this it's fairly top heavy in it, so you get it in the first 20 minutes, like the kind of like gimmicky VHS-y type stuff, and then it just settles into its own rhythm of a slasher film. And as a regular slasher film, it's kind of entertaining. There's a little rawness to it. The authenticity makes it feel like, let's just say this, I've seen a lot of films in which people try to capture that kind of 80s tone, much like in the wake of Grindhouse. Everybody was like, I'm doing a Grindhouse movie. This actually feels like a dubbed-down VHS, several generation kind of film, and the performances feel very raw. It feels very much like a DIY effort that was made in Jersey, in the woods, and somehow these kids who made the movie just happened to get distribution and it found its way onto a VHS shelf. It's a lot of fun. My only thing that I have with it is when you do kind of a throwback, I wish the filmmakers would look at the tools that they have, the technological tools that they have, and limit themselves to what they actually had in the 80s or in the 70s in terms of the artistry, in terms of the craft, in terms of because I feel like the aesthetic to it was the aesthetic they applied to it here a little bit too modern. You know, shots felt like a little too clean or too gimmicky or too stylish, you know.
It's one thing I liked about Paranormal 3. You know, at Paranormal Activity 3, how they actually did feel like it was from that era.
But I think that there's a problem with that as well, because I know when I see, and this drives me nuts to begin with, where contemporary filmmakers try to make their films look grindhousey.
Yeah.
I mean, Grindhouse did it okay.
But that's also what it looked like.
But
you're
then
talking about the actual
there was just this onslaught, just a saturation of films that were like, oh, look, we can put a grainy filter over the film and call it a Grindhouse film.
But inherently, the aesthetic at the time, you think about what the tools the filmmaker had in the 70s or 80s in terms of how the composition is, in terms of how the camera moves, is very distinct from what we're doing now.
Because they were shot on 16.
Yeah, they were shot on 16.
Usually almost always.
And
you were doing editing and camera. What can you get in one shot?
And they weren't able to like maybe put themselves on a crane and be able to do a nice crane shot and all that stuff. It's a small little thing that I had with Lake Nowhere, but kudos to Christopher Phelps and Maxime Vanskoy for doing something that is incredibly charming and incredibly bloody and incredibly cool. It took me off guard and I had a lot of fun with it. So you can find that on Shudder or go to Brink Vision and pick up a copy.
Cool. Yeah, I added it to my Shudder. I can't wait to check it out. For me, up next is I'd never heard of this movie. Scream Factory just put out a film from 1970 called The House That Screamed. It's got this great cover design.
The cover, I remember.
Back in the day, back in the Killer POV days, I saw a burned copy, and I talked about it because it reminded me a lot Suspiria-esque like aesthetic to the school and stuff.
Sure, and they mentioned Suspiria a lot in this. Did you watch it that time? Or you
I really liked it, but I haven't seen it since.
Oh, I can't wait. All right, so obviously this is a new Blu-ray.
Yeah.
It's
Great,
restored.
right?
Yeah, it looks fantastic. There's an extended cut on it, although you can't extend this thing. It's already long enough as it is. But I got together with my friend Joe Bashara, and neither of us had ever seen this, and we watched it. And I just want to talk more about the experience because that's what made the movie so interesting to watch. So this is 1970. It's directed by Narcisco Ebenez Serrador, who is most well known for Who Can Kill a Child.
Oh, yeah.
And he also did one of the 6 films to keep you awake called Blame. Which I didn't realize that he was one of those filmmakers on that. But
Spanish director.
It's a Spanish director with a lot of bless you.
Excuse me.
With a lot of British actors, and it takes place in 19th century France, although it doesn't feel that way. It's basically a kind of like for lack of a better term, an orphanage, a girls' home. But it's so weird because there's like the tyrant of the woman that runs it that it almost borders and feels kind of like a drama / like a reform school girl sort of thing. It's not as exploitive, but you're waiting for that sort of thing.
Right.
And so that's the thing is you've got all these attractive young girls and you've got this interesting setup, and then nothing happens for like a really long time. Like you're trying to figure out, is this even a horror movie? Because literally it's just kind of this drama, and then some of them are showering with their gowns on, and you're like, what's going on here?
For the course,
they weren't naked.
That's what I do, Rob.
They weren't naked. They were. I was like,
wearing their gowns.
That's always like
this doesn't make any sense.
They couldn't get the pay bump to be naked, or it wasn't in their contract, so you just got to do it.
It was hilarious. So me and Joe were watching this thing, and I think we made it about 50 minutes in, because it's like an hour and 40 minutes. We're at the 50-minute mark when the first kill is coming up. It's about to happen. And we're like, is this even a horror movie? He's like, I don't know, grab the box again. And the kill happens. And then I look at the box and I'm like, all right, well, somebody died. It says here in the box, one by one, they will die. And he's like, all right, well, we've got one.
Once you get to the by one, it's the secret.
All right, well, let's see. Is there going to be another by one? Or whatever? So we kept watching and we were having fun. But literally the pacing of this thing is so damn slow that at one point, one of the characters is like walking around the house and lighting like all these like several candles in a row, and it's just it's dark, and all of a sudden like the fast forward button goes on. He's like, let's just help her out here a little bit.
I remember loving that part.
Yeah, walking around with the candles.
Pivotal candle lighting scene.
I remember the lighting being really interesting in the movie.
Yeah, no, so it looked good, but it was really slow, and we were like, is this a horror movie? And then some interesting things started happening. Then there are a couple of kills, but what really set apart is we're sitting there, we're like, all right, we've stuck with this long.
Yeah.
If this ending isn't amazing, I'm going to be very upset. And you know what? The ending is fucking amazing.
Yeah, I can't remember it now, but I remember
that is the reason the movie has the reputation it has. And if I may be so bold, it's not it's not as good, but it's almost bordering on the shock of like the Sleepaway Camp ending, where you're like, oh
Really?
shit! Look, for the first 15 minutes of this movie, that was not the ending I would have called at all.
I just won the
So-
Blu-ray at trivia as well from Bekah at
Yeah,
trivia, so I'm going to
we
watch
had
it
a
again.
whole bunch of copies of that.
Yeah,
Now
they
I'm
did,
wishing
yeah.
I'd kept one.
I just remember it's funny though, but an ending can change how you view the whole movie. Right?
Exactly, and
you can go,
that's the
was great.
thing. I was like, it better end well, or
Yeah.
otherwise this is a bust.
Yeah.
And we got to, and we're like, no, it was pretty fucking
It does
cool.
make all the difference. That's cool.
Okay.
So-
I'll hustle through these two. A couple 80s slashers that I hadn't seen. So that's and as I think we all agree, and maybe not Beck as much on slashers, but there's no such thing as a bad 80s slasher. There are once you let me rephrase it.
Hey,
Once you've
Elric,
watched
how's
it,
Microwave Massacre?
no, that's not a slasher. I don't know what that is. It's a bad comedy routine.
Subgenre,
No.
microwave, death.
But hear me out. I mean one that's not worth watching. So at least once. So of course,
That's
there's
true.
bad 80s slashers, but to watch it once, I'll watch anything and I'll be like, oh, this is cool.
I feel that
while
way
I'm
about
watching
creature
it, you know?
features. There's
Yeah,
no
yeah.
bad creature features.
Maybe I feel that about all horror films. Let me paraphrase.
That's why we're watching them all.
First up, we got the Blu-ray of Hide and Go Shriek from
Oh.
Code Red.
Oh, yeah.
80s slasher. It's basically really kind of generic teenagers, really oversexed. They're all in couples. They're going to stay at the one kid. He's going to take over his dad's furniture store. So it has a very chopping mall
Oh, this
vibe.
is a riveting plot
Yeah,
so
it's
far.
basically they're at a furniture store, and then the killer stuff starts, and you're like, "What the hell? Who is this? I can't." You have no idea why the killer was in a furniture store in the first place. It's very specific.
It has a foot tattoo.
yeah,
on
I
the
love-
It's a foot
cover.
tattoo.
I
Yeah.
love that cover.
I
image.
remember in the 80s being like, I didn't know you could tattoo a foot. Like, because you didn't see that a lot in the 80s.
It's a bit of it's trying to be a little misleading there. It's very bloodless, which is one of the problems. It's pretty clunky. It's one of those movies where it has 8 characters, and every shot's a wide shot with all 8 characters, and you're just like, oh come on guys, learn to shoot a fucking. It's like a master. I think it's that one Skip Skulnick, who was the editor of Halloween 2, is directing it.
What?
Yeah,
All right.
and it was a quickie. I think they shot it really quickly, but it has one thing that I think is really worth people. It's got a reveal of a killer, gender twist type, gender identity stuff that's very now in a way. It's that at the time must have been really kind of out there ahead of its time. That's kind of it doesn't completely work, but it at least makes the movie kind of like, oh, that was kind of worth watching. If it wasn't for that, I'd be like, I don't know. And they literally go, hey, let's go play hide and go seek, and you got fuck off. It's like, oh, we'll just have sex over here while they look for us. It's a little lukewarm. The other one I watched to fill, because it's one of those ones I'd never seen, and I bet you probably have, is the Boston Harvard type slasher, which is more like a giallo, which is Night School. I'd never seen
I've
Night
never
School.
seen
I actually enjoyed that one.
It's okay.
When
I mean,
was a kid.
it doesn't utilize the night school element at all. So it's really kind of forgets that it's even called Night School. It's one of those movies that's really much more like a giallo in the way it's treated, kind of the formal nature of it. But it's got the guy kind of looks like the Wraith, Charlie Sheen in the Wraith, wearing the full leathers and the biker helmet. So I've noticed a few films with that pattern. But it's okay. Some of the kills are cool. There's some nice surprises in there. Again, it's kind of flat, and you kind of see why it's maybe one of the lesser known of that period. But again, it was cool to see it's just at some point we're going to run out, right, of seeing 80s slashers. But it's cool that I still feel like every year I get
put
to
that
see
one out?
That one I didn't see on a Blu-ray. It was on I think it's called Vivo, and it's a streaming platform that has just a ton of movies.
Yeah.
I have that on my
Yeah.
television. I've never
It's on
clicked
P-
on
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And I just literally was scrolling through, and I was like, "Oh, Night School! I've been meaning to check that one out." So I thought that was really cool. And just because I'll finish off, so we don't have to come back to me. I saw speaking of Mr. Slugs, J.P. Simone, who can never do no. Have you guys seen The Rift?
No.
Way up. Oh my God, Bekah, this movie was
Rift?
made for you. You got
Let me
the guy.
guess. It's underwater.
Okay, boom. Keep them coming.
Okay.
There's a creature that
Is
comes
there-
out of a rift.
A
two,
creature?
good.
Okay.
Yeah. What else you got?
Something actiony with lots of explosions.
Really bad ones, yes.
yes. Okay, I'm
And
there.
the director of Slugs.
Holy
It's
fuck.
literally
Okay.
like if somebody goes, I'm going to remake Leviathan, but with no money.
Oh.
Oh,
And,
this
and the
sounds
director
like...
of Pieces.
And it came out in the
What
wake
year
of
is it?
I know it looks like it might have been 83, 85. It's probably after.
So it's like pre-Deep
1990?
Rising, but still
Oh yeah,
like...
it could be. It does say J.P. Simone. There's a couple movies called The Rift.
Yes.
Oh,
This one.
wow. So that
With
puts
Arlie
it like...
Ermy?
It's got
That's
Arlie
like
Ermy
past-
and Ray Wise.
Oh my god.
Holy shit. So
It's-
technically this falls into that
Jack Scalia?
1989
Yeah,
when...
Jack Scott the lead. He's terrible at
So
it.
1989, we saw like
amazing.
all of these underwater creatures.
Yes,
That's
it's
when
right
we
in
saw
that period.
Leviathan and Deep Star 6, and they all came out out kind of back to back.
And I'll throw another one you like.
This one came out.
The way they all look once they go underwater to this rift thing, it becomes a little alien-y, but it's really contamination because they're wearing the exact contamination suits. But this is cheap as fuck. Like,
okay, I'm there.
The diving, it's definitely miniatures diving. This is on Amazon streaming right now. It cost me $2 last night. When I saw J.P. Simmons' name, I was like, hell yes, I'll watch any movie by this guy. So I'd say the first half's borderline quite terrible. Like really slow, clunky, kind of cheap sets. We're going to go down to the submarine. But then, like all great, crazy, what the fuck movies, once they get down there are crazy, goopy creatures, crazy underwater stuff, like way up your alley. It's like totally back. I was literally going, I think I'm only going to finish this for Bekah. And then when I got to the end, I was like, that's actually pretty cool.
You stayed with it for me.
But it's definitely the cheapest of Picard's films I've seen.
Wow. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I'm
so look out for
psyched.
it.
Okay. So this is a quick one, but then I want to talk about the one that I actually watched all of. So I realized I'd never seen Firefly at some point over Christmas break. The show. Oh. Like, and I knew references to it, and I'd picked up a lot of just geek talk at various conventions, so I was suddenly like, okay.
What does that rhyme?
What?
Does that sound like the Cinema Police?
I'm getting to the horror element. I'm getting to the horror element, which is why I said this is a quick one. So I ended up binge watching.
Yeah.
I ended up binge watching all of Firefly and the Serenity. I binge watched it in like 2 days, but then I got really sad thinking, oh man, I wish Joss Whedon would do more horror. But then I remembered he has a horror project coming up. As soon as I was watching this, I started IMDbing everybody in the cast, and I clicked on him, and on his IMDb page it says, untitled Joss Whedon World War II horror project, plot unknown, horror slasher film set in World War II.
Oh, that's just that literally is somebody creating an IMDb page for something that he mentioned in an interview that he might be.
IMDb police. I've never seen it happen.
No, God damn it.
That was literally because you guarantee. Like I was like, Blum, do you see this? No, there was an article in which he was like, yeah, I'm going to work on this thing. I'm like maybe writing this thing. Maybe.
Right.
I mean, like, there's no.
Crushed my whimsy there.
Stop going off the IMDb.
Damn it. Okay, fine. Well, then I watched the second season of Inside Number 9, and this is where it gets more horror. So I had talked to you guys about this probably back on Killer POV. This is a British anthology show, and the only thing that connects them is that all of the episodes are very Hitchcock. Like, supposedly the writers based all of these things off Hitchcock's Rope, and you feel it. Every single episode is just this ridiculous amount of tension. And I had to get like the disc and use my region player. And I watched the first season 2 years ago and absolutely loved it. So I got the second season and watched it on New Year's Eve. That was my New Year's Eve party. We watched them all back to back. There are some amazing episodes in it. So I'm going to have to invite you guys over one night just to watch like some of the choice episodes.
I want to do a supercut of the amount of times you've invited us to your house to watch thing. And
then it never
contrast
happened.
The amount of times.
Bekah lays out the cheese and the fine wine.
One day we're going to do this.
Inside Number 9. It's happening, guys. Because there's one that is set in a witch trial, and it's like back in like old-timey dark times witch trial. It's amazing. Old-timey dark times. There's a seance one that's ridiculous, and one of the scariest episodes that is in there, you cry at the end. It's just, they're so good.
It's called Inside Number 9.
Inside Number 9.
I Am Number 4.
No, Inside Number 9. And again, the only thing that connects them together, some of the actors repeat, but they all take place inside of a building that's number 9.
That's right. Okay.
And I had seen the first episode. Somebody sent me an online clip of the very first episode, which is where all of these people end up in a wardrobe while they're playing this game, like this adult game, and they all end up in a wardrobe, and it's very claustrophobic and Hitchcockian. And it got me really into it, and it's not available in the U.S., so you have to get like the regionless player. But man, the show is fucking awesome.
But let's talk about Serenity.
Jesus.
Serenity now.
It was a journey to get there.
It was a journey. Inside Number 9 is worth it.
Fine. Ryan, what's your last batch?
My last batch, God. Well, I did see Underworld Blood Wars, but I'm not going to talk about that.
Oh, come on.
Why?
We want to hear about it.
No, I don't.
No, you don't. No, you don't care. I went through the Hellraiser trilogy. Hellraiser, Hellbound.
Perfect, because this is my last choice.
Hell on Earth. You guys can wrap
Hell on Earth. In the Shockwaves movie club forum, I did discuss my thoughts on Hellbound. But watching them back to back over the course of 3 days, Hellraiser is so. Here's the thing. I'm going to elaborate. My discovery this time was that I did not find Hellbound as enjoyable as I've always found it, and it's simply because you come off this euphoric high of wow, Hellraiser still really works, and here are the mechanics of it, and here is why it works, and then you get to Hellbound, and you're like, this is just now plain goofy. Like they're like expanding the mythology and they're doing all of this. And now we're getting to the humanity of the Cenobites. And we got Dr. Chenard dropping one-liners. And then we got Tina and we got all these like elements to it. And you kind of yearn for the intimacy and moral code breaking of Julia and her plight in Hellraiser.
Though Julia is a great monster in the second one.
No,
Yeah.
she's
She
a
looks
great
physically
monster.
a great monster.
But what you have in Hellraiser that works so well is this woman who's trapped in this marriage she's not happy with and constantly churning with this, these memories of screwing her husband's brother and the links that she's going to go to have that intimacy again, to have that sexuality again, to have that happiness again. And that's a dark place to explore. And it's a personal thing to explore. And I feel like that personal touch got lost in Hellbound for mythology, And
Yeah, I'd say that Hellbound definitely, it wanted to incorporate more of kind of Clive Barker's books. It brought in a lot more of like Leviathan becomes a central character.
Right.
And you get like that weird worm looking thing that they never really explained, but he's the engineer. And you get a lot of kind of the
How much did Clive
backstory.
develop the second one? How much of it is like Clive Barker's influence? Because I know he didn't direct it, but did he have much of a hand in it? Was he asked to direct the second?
Yeah, I think he had like a little bit no, he wasn't going to come back, but I think he had kind of like
Guiding
a little bit,
mythology,
just a little bit.
I just think it would have been so interesting to see what Clive Barker
What he
would have
would have
done a
done,
sequel
yeah.
because he is a big reason the first is so successful. He's just such a dark background
and that's not to discredit Tony Randall's work on
he does a
Hellbound
great
because
job,
there's some really good stuff in there and there's some good humor to it and I think Doug Bradley's still fantastic as Pinhead in that one.
And the creature effects in that
The creature
one
effects
are really
good. Everything's really cool, and Ashley Lawrence is fantastic, and kind of like that reveal where she's wearing Julia's skin. It's like, oh yeah, that's great. There's a lot of great elements, but the stuff that you really thought made Hellraiser work don't work in Hellbound, and then once you get to Hell on Earth, it's like woof.
Don't tell it. Bekah, take off. You better go.
Excuse me?
Back
too
up.
late.
Oh,
Too
come
late,
on.
Rob.
No,
Back up.
I have to say, like part 1 and 2, and I guess it followed me through adolescence. Part 1 scared the shit out of me to the
totally.
point that I could barely even stand it. Like I was so mesmerized, but just completely destroyed by it simultaneous that by the time part 2 came out, I was like, I have to see this. And I really loved part 2. I have to admit, I haven't seen it in a long time, but when I saw it as a kid, it scared the crap out of me. And by the time I had kind of reached the point where I was like, okay, these things don't scare me anymore, Hellbound or part 3 came out, and then it was fun.
Yeah.
CD Cenobite.
CD
Jump in the shark,
Cenobite,
CD.
Barbie,
I loved the whole
barbecue one.
that she couldn't dream, and then she could for some reason. It just I loved it. It amped it up. It had that awesome Soup Dragon song in it. It was set in a club.
So basically,
it followed with me through adolescence.
yeah. So basically, it hit at a time in which you were at a point in which you wanted the soundtrack. You wanted Pinhead as the boogeyman.
I wanted to go to that club and hang out.
You wanted the club. You wanted to be Paul
that
Marshall.
Awesome thing that he had, the obelisk or whatever you call it, thing that he had that the cube was stuck in that he considered art. I loved that thing.
Yeah.
It hit at a time I was like, it kicked ass.
There's a certain slickness to it, but you can't get around the fact that it just descended into pure goofiness because it was just kind of like, oh, what you're basically Hell on Earth is basically about duality, and it's about the Pinhead that is the evil side, and then there's the Doug Bradley side, the humanity of it, and how like both are like one's on Earth and one's trapped away, and you're kind of like that doesn't really gel with what I thought it was, what you would set up in Hellraiser and Hellbound,
Yeah, well, the first two definitely have this kind of, I'll call it a classier feel to them, where it's much more kind of legend-based and this battle between good and evil and morality.
Look,
and then part 2 rolls around.
I'll keep sipping on fine wine. You have your ice cream. It's cool. It's cool, Bekah.
Part 3 rolls around and it's just crazy fucking Cenobites decimating a club full of club kids. And that's kind of fun, guys.
I may feel differently differently, but look, I just looked at it. Came out in '92. I was 16 years old when this movie came out. It was the first Hellraiser I got to see in theaters.
Yeah,
the first two were
nostalgia's a
kind of
bitch.
off.
I bought the soundtrack.
And and I liked. But anyway, I picked up this box set too. And you know what? Again, this was a tough buy because it's a great package, but it's pretty much about $100. And to me, it's hard to justify 3 movies for $100. Yeah. But I got a good deal on it. It was on sale on Amazon or whatever for like 70 or 65 or something like that. Picked it up and I immediately went to the bonus disc because there's like a booklet in there. There's some really amazing stuff.
There's a full-on hardcover booklet.
Yeah,
that's like a making of book.
And it's definitely a great, worthwhile package. Yeah. But I went right to the bonus disc, and the first thing I watched is actually something that you sort of had something to do with, Ryan, which was the documentary Hellraiser Evolutions. Which I found really fascinating because instead of going chronologically the way that a lot of these fan docs do, the way that Ryan structured it, and maybe you could explain to us a little bit, because I don't think you had anything to do with the completion of this, but it was originally a project you started. And rather than go movie to movie, because once you get to Deader, it's like, why do we want to get in depth? You went themes,
right?
So it's all broken up in chapters and themes of things in Hellraiser. So you'll get to hear from Scott Derrickson, who directed the fifth one, Inferno, and then kind of go back and forth between some of those sequels. And if anything, it made me kind of want to watch them all. I was like, all right, I'm really not liking it, but I kind of want to see it again now.
Do you want me to break you with that?
No.
They did a good job with that. I was really I watched that too for the first time, having seen the interviews that I molded we were originally going to do a Hellraiser documentary, and I just didn't want to do a kind of chronological thing. So I was like, let's really look at thematically what makes a Hellraiser universe tick. What are the character it's like a chess game, what do you have to be part of the Cenobites? What do you have to be presented with the box? What does it take to open a box? All these kind of like thematic things, and really kind of break it down. So when we went into the questioning of our interview guests, our interviewees, we went in with that line of questioning, rather than just go, hey, Kari Wurr, what was it like to do this? And miraculously, the team that put the actual final product together, they got it. Like, they understood that. So I was really happy to see that they just compiled all of our raw footage that we had given them, and molded it into basically what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, no, it came out great.
So, and I could probably say, it's been so many years, what we originally envisioned was to tell an original Hellraiser story through the thematic structure of the documentary. And I had approached Clive Barker to basically create a new Cenobite for the new millennium. Okay. And I said, look, I want this to be kind of a yin and a yang kind of thing. Like, I want the old Cenobite meeting a new Cenobite kind of thing, kind of structure. So he created something, and we went to Junker Designs, and Junker created this elaborate costume based on Clive's designs and the makeup, and he had like it was a Cenobite unlike anything you've seen before. It was less black and more kind of gold accents and maroon colors, and it was more leprous, and it was weird, and it had like the lament configuration on this giant cape, and it was beautiful. And they took that costume and they put it in one of the art galleries here in town when they had a Clive Barker show. So everybody was like, what the hell is that? I'm like, I could tell you. It was super cool though, but we were going to thread this kind of original story through that I wanted Clive to kind of like sign off on. He was along for the ride, but then the whole thing fell apart. So, and then we just gave the footage over to the folks when Arrow was putting it together.
I got you.
But it was really cool.
Did your documentary include that last one, the really chunk one, or was that already not done by the time you did the doc?
What do you mean?
The one without Doug.
We were getting guests as we could. Okay. Like, we were lining up the guests when we could. We literally had a word out to Henry Cavill before he was Superman, because he was in one of the segments, and he was on the cusp, but then he became Superman. But we had a bunch of different people, and what you see in the doc, Rob, is the culmination of everybody we had gotten up to a certain point. So,
right.
But we got a lot of key players.
Yeah. So that was super cool. That's on the bonus disc. And then I just went back and watched the first one, which is, I was pretty unhappy. I think Anchor Bay they'd done the original Hellraiser 1 and 2 on DVD, and they kind of threw out the Blu-ray versions of those. And then I think maybe, whatever that cheapo company is that Echo something that always gets Anchor Bay stuff. The original American Hellraiser 1 and 2 on Blu-ray is terrible. this is a beautiful, beautiful restoration of the original. And again, you know, I only watch it every couple of years, and every couple of years I always forget how strong that first one is, and how little the Cenobites in it. And again, it's a family drama, really. It's like a really fucked up family drama that happens to have people playing with forces they shouldn't. Yeah. And that's what's
Frank
so strong about it.
I mean, Frank is much more
great.
interesting than the Cenobites back then, and it's because it's just so sexual and so dark. It's one of my favorite movies. Just like it's one of those horror films where you're like, besides just some of the effects at the end, you know, just the little things with the little lasers and stuff. Outside of that, and maybe the boyfriend at times, their relationship bothers me. But it's a really great.
Well, that I noticed that, like when he shows up and he like comes bursting into the house at the end,
random,
but he doesn't react at all to like there's like a demon coming through that door right now, and he's not like, what the fuck is that? He's just like, oh, the walls are collapsing, let's get out of here. And it's like, dude, there's like demons like running through the house. But no, I loved it. I think they did a great job, and that's the thing is I have yet to delve into 2 and 3, but there was another documentary being made called Leviathan.
Yeah.
And now that's been incorporated into the set.
They break it up into
They broke it up.
film.
So I watched the first part because it's an hour and a half just for part 1. And it's mostly new interviews with the Cenobites and stuff like that. It's great. There's just some great stuff. It's great to hear, because we've heard everything from Clive and Ashley Lawrence and all them. But they have the woman that played the lead, drawing a blank on her name now.
Oh, Barbie.
No. I'm talking about what's her name? Julia. Yeah. Claire Higgins. She's in there in a recent interview. Obviously, Doug.
Have you seen her in other stuff? I'm sure she's such a good actress. She seems like a classic British.
I don't know.
Actress. I don't
she
recall
probably did a lot of
seeing her
stuff
in anything
there,
else.
but yeah. And then to me, the most fascinating, they touch on it in Leviathan, but then they give it its own featurette, is all about the music that Coil, the industrial band, did.
Stephen Thrower, Nightmare USA, is a member of Coil.
Oh, get out of here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He's the original member.
Yeah, he talks about meeting Clive and how everything happened, and they even show you some of the scenes cut to the Coil music. Now, it doesn't work at all. So you're like, oh, all right, well, that's kind of cool.
Would have been interesting.
But that's the fun thing is that, the Christopher Young, it's just one of those marriages that's just like, I can't believe, I can't imagine any other music to Hellraiser than what he did.
Brilliant.
So it's a great set, and I'm really excited to delve into 2 and 3 and just kind of keep checking the features out.
And before we move on from Hellraiser, there is the comic book, Hellraiser comic book coming out. It's releasing at Monsterpalooza in early April, and then it will be available everywhere. And I wrote one of the stories in it with my husband. So
it's coming out like as an anthology.
Yeah, it's like an anthology.
Novel?
It's a graphic novel. I think there's 4 stories in this first one. I don't think I can talk about anything past that, but there's 4 stories in this first one, and I wrote one of them.
That's awesome.
And it's coming out in the next couple of months?
It's April. We're releasing it at Monsterpalooza, and then I think it's available everywhere after that.
Great.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So we're about to go to our preview.
Yes.
Yeah.
We might take a bathroom break. I'm not sure. But I can't. I'm
not that you will know.
As Ryan knows, because I sent about 200 emails, I'm not letting us go this day without at least saying our favorite Friday 13th movie, because it's Friday 13th.
I know. We will. We'll do that.
Yes.
So as long as that happens, it doesn't have to be in depth.
All right.
Friday the 13th, part 3.
Oh, jinx.
I'm
Part
kidding.
7.
No, you know it's 6.
I know you were thinking of 6.
Listen,
it is 6.
save your Friday questions for
Okay,
the
So
fine.
this is
Save
basically
them for
what
the
we're
end.
doing is this is a recap, or not a recap, but the films,
preview.
a preview, films that we are looking forward to in 2017, horror films we're looking forward to in 2017. We've compiled a list of hopefully the most accurate information because, as we know, between now and the end of the year, there'll be a lot of films that just kind of come off the festival scene and instantaneously pop up in
But Bekah got her information from the same place she got the Joss Whedon film. So
No, actually, most of these. No, actually, you're right. Some of these did come off IMDb.
Everyone just
now
turned
that
off
I'm
our
thinking
show.
about it, I'm like, yeah, some of these dates I did
That's
just
all right.
pull
Don't
off.
worry about that.
Ryan is here to correct you.
I did have to scratch one thing off,
Which is still listed as that date.
But yeah, and it's also on IMDb as being directed by David Fincher.
No, that has been changed since.
all I know is we can all
World
agree
War
on one
Z
thing.
2 is probably not coming out this year.
The thing we are all, I would hope we're all most looking forward to is Twin Peaks. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, no,
right
for
off
sure.
the top.
By
And
far.
that is definitely happening.
Cinema Police is calling out
wait, come on.
TV. We're talking
It's
TV.
horror.
as
Yeah,
well?
and is that technically horror?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it can be as much as anything is.
Can we-
Fire Walk with
Can
Me
we
sure
get
is.
an alarm? Can
Yeah,
we get
we
like
need
a
that,
push
we did.
button like
We really
Cinema
do need
Police
Cinema Police
sound
song.
effect?
But I mean, I just am so excited
obnoxious
to
movie.
read him saying I view it as one big film, and it's like Lynch heroin.
Oh,
and I'm
totally,
like,
totally.
in.
All right.
Okay, we can move past
Very
it now.
excited.
We're very excited about
All
that.
right.
Anyways.
Well, why don't we just start with the
Excellent.
ones we're personally most
Okay,
excited
guys,
about?
yeah, let's just go around
Yeah, just
the
go around.
ones
What
that
do
we
you-
are personally, even though I can say that I am probably not going to like it because the trailer makes me question where it's going. I'm excited to see Rings just because I kind of want Samara to come back.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat because I haven't seen Sadako versus Kayako yet because
Which I
it'll be
loved.
on Shudder the 26th, is it?
Yeah,
later this month.
Yeah.
They
later
delayed
this
it. It was supposed to hit Shudder in December, and they ended up bumping it to January. And Rings is coming out on February 3rd.
Okay. Now, I don't have a lot of faith for Rings because I saw their first trailer.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
And they did that little plane thing. However, and this is the power of marketing, that they just, because it's coming out in February, they did a new trailer and it's got like a little creepy girl's voice explaining the whole Ring mythology. It's like a minute long and it's a fucking great teaser.
Yeah.
So they did their job, at least with the teaser. So now I'm at least curious, although I still have very little high hopes for it because, back at the beginning of Shockwaves, I started getting into the Japanese horror stuff again. And what I realized is I just don't like the American versions of any of these because they're well-made films, but I just feel like
The first one was pretty good.
The Ring is
no,
pretty good.
But
It's a pretty good remake.
I don't like it. I don't like it as much as Ringu.
Oh, no, I don't like it as much as
There's
Ringu,
some
but it's a
aesthetic
really-
that
yeah.
loses me, and I don't find. I remember The Ring when that came out. The amount of hype that I got is like, this is the scariest thing since The Exorcist, and it didn't. There were things in it that I liked a lot, but then there's things that to me were like nonsensical, like the fly, like being stuck in the screen because
that
that's
was fantastic.
weird, and then a ladder, and I'm like, none of this is scary to me. Whatever. But anyway, the
Even
point
the horse
being
was
is
scary on the boat. That
Yeah,
even
I thought
scared
the
me,
horse was
really.
freaky.
none
But
of
did
that,
you,
none of
which
that worked
did you
for
see
me.
first? I saw Ringu before Ring.
No, I saw the Japanese one.
Yeah, the
first.
Japanese is just a super
yeah.
creepy film.
Yeah, so I'm curious, but I felt like with American remakes of Japanese horror, they've never really gotten the translation right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Basically.
Is D'Onofrio on this?
Yeah, I think he is
I
actually.
think I had a student go to one of the advanced screenings of this, where they ask you to go things.
Oh, yeah.
And he was really excited about it. He kind of came back lukewarm. So, but who knows? It might not have even been done,
Yeah,
when he
yeah.
saw it. So I did that for Mad Max and didn't like it. So what do I know?
And you were wrong.
Yeah,
that one was awesome.
I'm very eager for the early 2000s to come back, guys. Very eager.
As am I.
No, I think Rings looks interesting. I mean, I thought the Ring 2 was just complete misstep. I revisited Rings about a year ago. The Ring, first Ring, the Naomi Watts Ring, about a year ago. I think it's still just. There's just great atmosphere. It looks fantastic. I think it was like one of those early 2000 movies that kind of set up color palette that a lot of people. It was an oft imitated color palette and tone.
It was like bleak and blue.
It was blue, yeah. Which leads me to one of the films that I'm kind of interested in checking out, which is A Cure for Wellness, which is Gore Verbinski's new horror film. I know nothing about
Same
it.
director.
I love
Same
the
director.
concept.
Yeah,
it
I
looks
know
really
nothing
cool.
about it. The cast looks interesting.
You saw the trailer, right? That crazy
Nope.
tease. Oh, okay,
Nope.
interesting. It was
Nope.
playing before movies, so I couldn't miss it.
No,
You know
no.
the plot, right?
Nope.
No.
I'm staying. I'm going
Wow.
to stay completely away from it because I just want to kind of go in knowing one movie. I don't want to know anything about this movie whatsoever
Yeah.
for some reason. I
This
just
one
wanna-
comes out February 17th.
Yeah.
Visually, it looks fat. Like whatever it is, because I couldn't even tell from the trailer when I started in theater exactly what it's about. But it looked big. Like it looked like, whoa, what is this? It's like actually the little movie I was talking about on our Best of Evolution. It looks like the $100 million version of that movie.
Yeah.
Really, and you're like, whoa, what is this?
I will say, and this is not spoiling it for anything, it is about a wellness camp.
I'm going to walk out, guys.
This is it. This is all it's about. It's in the fucking title.
I like that you're just going to literally take a giant shit on Ryan right now.
It is about a wellness camp.
Guys,
That's it.
So I'm very
I want to know
sensitive to this
nothing.
one thing.
but I was going to
Where's
say.
the peanuts?
Yeah, I was gonna say let's break the peanuts out.
Oh, they killed Bekah. They killed Bekah.
I am interested in this because then this goes back to the
you
bonus
can go on,
episode that
Bekah,
we
go
did.
on.
There is a lot of history behind some of these wellness camps, especially in like the 18th.
Road to Wellville, that movie.
Yeah, there's a whole history of like all of these wellness camps being opened up in the early 1900s
Oh, yeah.
by
They've
people
made-
who were like serial killers that just wanted to torture people.
Yeah.
So come to my wellness camp and I'm just going to torture you. So I may have to do like a
There was
bonus
that-
episode on that.
What's
but
that
yeah.
awful Anthony Hopkins movie?
Right, Road to Wellville.
Oh, right, that's what.
Yeah,
okay,
it's
that's
Kellogg.
what it
It's
was,
Dr. Kellogg going to arrest things.
There was one where this woman, her whole like idea of the wellness camp was that she did this thing called the starvation diet, where she would literally have people come and she would not allow them to eat, and like dozens died at these camps because of it. So there's like a fascinating history behind it. So that makes me interested.
No, it does. It looks cool. It looks cool. Like one that I'm really looking at. The best movie of next year is going to be ones we don't know about at festivals, and that's the shit I get excited. But I wrote down straight away because after Krishna, I'm like, this is like a horror film. And sure enough, his next film, Trey Edward Schultz, the director of Krishna's next movie, is called It Comes at Night. It's a straight horror film. It's got Riley Keough from The Girlfriend Experience, who I love, which is Elvis's granddaughter, and Joel Edgerton from the best Blumhouse film ever made, The Gift. And I don't know anything about it except the title. And I'm
excited too, because one of the things I didn't mention during the first half of the show is I caught up to Cretia and I caught up to The Fits.
Oh, during this break?
And I thought both films were really spectacular, so thank you for the recommend. But when I looked up Cretia and I looked up at the filmmaker, I was like, oh, he's doing a horror movie now.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Because, that's the fun thing. And it is cool. With indies, I think that's one of the reasons festival films are sometimes better, because we don't get to see all the stuff around it.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything. We're just going blind and you get knocked over by a film.
So the irony is the best movies that come out will probably not be mentioned today.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't know about them yet.
Unless it's by director we're following besides that.
Right.
On the smaller scale, one that I'm kind of excited about is Sofia Coppola's The Beguiled, which I think is going to be a smaller film.
It's a remake of the Clint Eastwood film, which is
1971.
amazing.
I love that Clint
Siegel.
Eastwood film. It's essentially
Super
about a kind of girls' school. I'll call it like a girls' boarding school, and this Confederate soldier is being imprisoned there.
Well, no, he's hurt. He's hurt himself. He's injured. He stumbles into them for help,
but he can't leave.
I think they're from the other side.
Yeah.
And then he's stuck at this girls' school, and then he tries to like seduce one of them, and then they're like, "Uh-oh, you don't do that. Now we're going to torture you."
It tears everything apart, and it gets tortury. And the 1971 definitely feels kind of exploitation, but a Western at the same time.
It's Don Siegel who made all the best, films with Clint at the time, Dirty Harry. You know, it's one of those films that would often appear on someone's underrated list, like, oh my God, I just discovered this crazy movie called The Beguiled. So I agree with you. She might do something really strange with it.
I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Do you know who's in it? Has it cast?
Yeah, actually, I saw Kristen Dunst was in it.
Okay, she's in all her movies, I guess.
Yeah, there was a couple people.
Soundtrack by Air.
I want to say Elle Fanning, too. I'll look it up real quick, but I want to say Elle Fanning
would make
was
total
in
sense
there,
in there. That's fun.
Well, my two most anticipated of the year, because I'm looking at the list here. Well, the first one is actually one that I've already seen. I'm just looking forward to seeing it again because it's been so long. But over the break, we learned that Oz Perkins' first film, called The Blackcoat's Daughter, will finally be released on February 16th. Theaters March 31st, and then it'll be exclusively on DirecTV February 16th. So I guess it's getting a slightly earlier release on DirecTV if you have what it's called on demand there.
And if you're in the UK, watch it right now.
Yeah, if you, I know a lot of our UK listeners have already seen it as
Netflix.
February on Netflix over there. But no, me and Elric really love this movie, and I think Ryan did too. And it's one that's kind of haunted me because I've only seen it that one time on the big screen, and I just can't wait to watch it again.
And it would have probably been tied for my number one spot again this year. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. Since it comes out this year, it's going to be pretty high on my favorites.
And I've been listening to you guys talk about this for a year now, and I really can't wait to see it.
And you will not like it.
I will say to people, because I know quite a few people who didn't jive with Oz's Netflix original, which I think is a really interesting movie, but it's a very slow movie.
Very slow paced.
I do want people to realize that this is a very different movie. You can still see the artistry is the same director, but it's a very different movie.
Very different.
So,
yeah.
I was going to go ahead.
Well, my most anticipated, that was the one that I wanted to plug, but my most anticipated won't be till later in the year, and it's the new version of It.
Okay.
Nice. Coming on September 8th.
Yes, September 8th. And the reason, there was actually a test screening of it in December, which somebody, our friend Dustin Sane from Texas was like, hey, do you know about this? I was like, oh my God. So I of course requested, and I was immediately denied. But apparently it's testing, and I'm actually glad because, again, when you're seeing something this early, it's very unfinished. Yeah. And I kind of want to be surprised by this movie. I know next to nothing other than it's the director of Mama. And from what I understand, I guess this is 2 parts. So this is just the kids segment, maybe? Is that the way it works? No, it's not.
It's a single movie.
Originally, it was a two-parter by the director of True Detective.
Yeah.
And that was his vision.
Cary Fukunaga.
And it didn't happen.
Yeah, he wanted to do a 2-parter, hard R.
Oh, so I didn't know that. Yeah. Because I haven't heard I've heard casting for the kids, but I haven't heard anything about who's playing the adult versions of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. No, you're right.
So I
haven't
always
heard much on
thought that it was intended to be 2 still, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's the one I'm looking forward to. And look, from a few pictures, it's really hard to tell. But my skepticism at this point is the pictures of Pennywise are scary, and he's a clown, and clowns are scary. But Tim Curry wasn't scary initially. That's how you draw kids in. Is you can't look like a monster right away. Right. Like I see the pictures of the new Pennywise, and I'm like, I would not go anywhere near that weird looking clown.
But maybe
when
that's
he
the high
first
point,
did the hi, is this your boat? I mean, he looked fun.
Yeah, I think everything that we need. I think we just need to come correct when it comes to it, which is it doesn't hold up. It doesn't hold up. The original It does not hold up as a film. Tim Curry exceeds beyond that. He's amazing. It's the Pennywise. It's like the parts are greater than the whole of that film. So it's like that's kind of the draw for me into this remake is like what's the new take that's actually going to make this material that does a service to the material, maintains a scary Pennywise, but also keeps that fun kid dynamic that we really liked, and also some of the scary kid dynamic stuff that occurred. There's a lot of bullying that was in King's book. There was a lot of the weird kind of connectivity between the kids, the stuff with Bev. There's a lot of uncomfortable material to mine, and I'm very curious to see what they retain and what they cut.
But also hard. It's a big book. It's usually I'm like, I'll just make a big long movie. I actually think this could have worked in a 2-part story. So I will be interested how you can cut it down to like a 2-hour movie. Wow. I think it'll be tough.
And I mean, the one thing I will say about the original, because I did revisit it when it came out on Blu-ray, is I think and I've also started reading the book again, I cannot imagine a better way to adapt it in terms of, I just love the structure of the TV movie. The way that they are like, all right, let's take it to the phone calls, and you get all the flashbacks to each character getting a phone call, and that's how you kind of weave in the old story with the new story, etc. Because the book is not in that order at all. Right. It's much different. Yeah. So at least structurally, I love the way that the original TV movie plays out. And now I'm even more curious because I have no idea what to expect from this version. I thought it was going to be the first of 2 movies, but that's my most anticipated.
Ryan, did you see Raw?
Yeah.
Okay, so did you see Raw?
Raw was on my
didn't.
festival favorites from last year.
Yeah, so Raw, I think just from pure hype.
Oh no, wait, Raw. I'm sorry, the French film.
Yeah, the Julie
did see that.
Dawson.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, that's probably the one because I missed it at Beyond and I was at the All Nighter. That's probably one of those movies that I haven't heard anything bad about, and I'm kind of excited to check it out, and I'm looking forward to that. I don't know when the release is, but I'm pretty sure maybe around April
March
or something.
10th.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that and Girl with the Gifts, I think they kind of go hand in hand. Once people have already heard of, they know they're coming.
Yeah,
great festival films.
Alien Covenant.
Yeah, I mean that's more than anything I would pay my money right now.
Yeah, that's
Alien
the
guys,
one.
Danny McBride. I couldn't believe he was in there. I was like, what? Danny McBride?
I hope they do the same type of screening that they did when Prometheus came out, where they just invited everyone who's even remotely a journalist in Hollywood to the Fox lot. Or was it on the Fox lot?
It was one of them.
Yeah. And it was just this massive theater, and it was just the most frenetic and positive screening I think I've ever been at. And people ended up hating Prometheus, but the screening was a trip.
I thought the trailer, everyone was disappointed. I thought it was awesome.
Well, listeners, I'm going to see it the way you're going to see it, which is on opening night. Not at some Fox lot.
Rob is the man of the people. The horror fan.
That's what we did for Prometheus.
Feel the burn.
I can't remember. It was somebody. I think it was Mike Mendez's birthday. Somebody's birthday, and that's what they wanted. Let's all go see Prometheus on opening night. But no, the trailer.
I thought it looked awesome. I was like into it.
The trailer looks cool. It has a different environment. It has a different setting, but the scenes that they pulled are not hopeful because we've seen it all before. Like you've seen you've seen that Prometheus like element of man interfering with something on this alien planet, and then it's getting in his ear. What happened to his ear? The kind of the downed space vessel, the space jockey ship looking like it crash landed into a planet again. It's kind of like, okay, but I have a fan theory on that. I feel like that's going to be Numi's ship from Prometheus. I don't think my
Do you
theory
think we'll
is,
see her in this film?
I think we're going to get a little bit of her.
Okay.
and we're going to get a whole lot of David.
Because he's a robot.
But I think what happens is they don't quite make it to their final destination.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
they're being very
just
coy about. They say she's in it, but they're not saying how.
I honestly think that Ridley, because he made such a good film with The Martian, I actually think making The Martian before this is going to be a really good thing for this movie. I feel like with Prometheus, I feel like he was kind of on a downward slide on a couple big movies when he did Prometheus, even though I like Prometheus quite a lot, even though it's clunky. After The Martian, I'm like, it's a really tight. Martian's still one of the best movies of that year.
Yeah.
I'm really hopeful for this movie. I know I shouldn't be, but I really think it's going to be a good time. Yeah. Of the big films, that's the only one. That and If Predator is coming out next year, nothing can top a Decker Black
Predator.
movie after The Nice Guys.
We trust
so damn great.
But
even
Black and Decker.
On big movies, even, I don't know, I'm nervous, but I'm kind of excited to see The Mummy. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm still skeptical, but I really want it to. I want it to
want it to
launch
be
a new
amazing.
Universal.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like I want it to succeed because I want the Universal monsters to come back in a big way. Yeah. So I hope it's good.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Well, we all want it
in
to
terms
be
of
good,
that. Well, I mean,
course,
like, looking at the indie films. I mean, we keep saying big movies. I mean, there's a lot more big horror coming out from the big studios than there is from the smaller stuff.
Like Get
right
Out
now,
and Belko.
like ahead of the.
Which I'm looking forward to. I'm not just saying that.
Belko's-
They are two of the ones I think will be
forward to
better.
those. Yeah, me too.
Belko's insane. And I can't wait for you.
It's
Get Out.
awesome.
Get Out looks
yeah,
great.
Belko's awesome.
Get Out looks perfect for today. Like I feel like if it dropped inauguration day, I want something like that. Like,
but I mean, but when you look ahead, the little independents, they work on a different kind of distribution structure. They don't have to worry about staking claim a year and a half ahead of time. So in terms of the big stuff, yeah, of course, there's like Alien, there's It, there's Cure for Wellness, Mummy, Kong,
Annabelle
2. Friday.
Also, like the entire month of October, even September is giant releases. September 29th, we have Flatliners remake.
Oh.
October 13th, we've got Friday the 13th remake.
now, is that really going to come out then? Is it like?
I
pretty
mean,
much
look,
locked?
guys. I mean, I see everybody online going, "Oh, how they're going to get Friday the 13th in theaters by October." Rob Zombie and many other filmmakers have shot films in April and had it come out by August.
Yeah.
So I mean, like we did the.
But
Gift.
it is Friday.
We did the
Friday the 13th, and this film.
But we did
continually gets
the Gift, and the Gift was a quick turnaround. You know, so can a turnaround Friday the 13th in time for Friday the 13th in October? Absolutely. Will they?
Yeah.
I have no idea, but that is one of my most anticipated.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
it's
of
fucking
course.
boring.
If that gets in the can, I think everyone here.
But interesting, it's going up against the Suspiria reboot. They're both set for October 13th.
Yeah.
Now,
If that-
either one could
I
get
think,
shelved.
Well, I
but
think Suspiria will take a while. I think that'll wind up going some strange festival.
It'll be like a
route.
Yeah,
con
that's the
movie,
one that
art
I
house
think-
festival.
it
or
would get
something.
shelved and held off while
Some
it
art
does
director,
festivals
art
more than
Amazon.
anything.
Amazon's producing it, so it's going to probably be the same way as Neon Demon and Handmaiden.
So, like,
But look at
That's-
Amazon; they're
and that
having a
movie's
good time.
And the Suspiria remake is incredibly ambitious. It's,
Yeah.
I have no
I'm
idea.
all for it, to be honest.
As long as it's not trying to be the same movie.
No, and they
No.
brought back Jessica Harper's got a part in it. so
Yeah,
it's
but I mean,
exciting.
the question is, do you do the lighting design of it, or
No,
do you
you
go
can't.
on a
It's
Yeah,
its
I
own
don't
movie.
think you
It has
can.
to be. It
I
has
think
to go
it
its own
has to
direction.
not have those
But
stark
Suspiria is
visuals
like
that
the is the
Argento
sum of
did.
all of those great elements.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, it
the,
is.
It's the
That's what
fucking
Suspiria
crazy
is.
story. It's the cast. It's the look. So when you go, oh, I'm going to do a Suspiria remake. It's just going to be about witches in this like ballet school.
There'll be
It's like,
slasher and then
No.
oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But
Does your plot
Actually, but
make
we're going to
sense?
scratch even the witch thing. We're going to double down on Udo Kier explanation scenes.
and
Expositorial.
he's still available. to
I
do
know,
them,
right?
so-
Probably is.
there's
Also
one.
in October, we've got October 20th is Insidious 4, Chapter 4. And then we got on the
You're
20th
shameless.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Okay, we're talking about corporate horror.
Yeah,
Corporate horror. And then on the 27th of October, we have both the new untitled Cloverfield project, which they haven't given any information
God
on.
particle.
Yeah.
God Particle, all right.
And then on the 27th, we also have Saw 8.
Yeah, Saw this-
Saw Legacy,
Yeah.
cool.
Saw
Could be
Legacy.
cool. And good
I'm just
directors.
curious what the hell they're gonna
good-
do
those-
with
Those
it.
Australian guys would be good.
Undead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Here's one I
Daybreakers.
want to know if anyone's heard, if this is even still happening, and would be one of my most anticipated. The Maniac Cop, Refn, and Ed Brubaker, the comic book guy. Not happening?
I don't
No?
think so.
Wow.
I mean, like, I don't think it's. I don't.
Actively
I
happening.
can't
It's
say
not
it's actively happening right now, but it's
Okay.
like one of those kind of in
Yeah,
development.
that one I was really excited, if something would come of that. And the other one, Gerald's Game. I mean, I think
Oh,
Gerald's
yeah.
Game,
Oh, yeah.
seeing what
Is that
a
slated
year.
for this year?
Yeah, it'll be this
Yeah,
year
it'll
for
be
sure.
on Netflix, yeah.
And it'll go straight. But just seeing the year he had, because, Ouija 2 deserved to come close on a lot of the lists. It's a really well-made movie.
Hush was
Hush
great.
is on pretty much all of our lists.
Yeah.
He had a great year, and he's only improving. And this is a really tricky subject material, and it's very adult. And I would love him to knock it out of the park. I think it'll be an amazing movie if he can go all the way with it.
Talking about Netflix as well, they have 2 other projects slated for 2017, pretty soon actually, that I'm kind of excited about. Did you guys watch the trailer for Clinical? Mm-hmm. It looks good. It looks like a psychological horror kind of Sixth Sense. But where it's got a lot of ghost elements to it as well. Right. It looks good. I'm kind of excited about that one.
There's one sneaking up on us for late summer that I'm really, really curious about, coming from Screen Gems, called Cadaver. And it's directed by, I'm going to butcher his name, Diederik van Rooyen. But he came from, I believe, the world of commercials and effects. But the plot is, when a cop who is just out of rehab takes the graveyard shift in a city hospital morgue, she faces a series of bizarre, violent events caused by an evil entity in one of the corpses, which harkens back a little bit to a
movie that's out right now that we won't tell you the title because it's a spoiler.
But it's been the project's been around, and I'm just curious. There's more of a less super stoked, but more of a curiosity about it, because I kind of like those little chamber pieces, those little supernatural chamber pieces. So that is apparently coming out August 25th.
Nice. Also on Netflix, they've started running ads for the Netflix, I'll call it TV show, even though it's not on TV, the Santa Clarita Diet.
Yeah. Which I thought was a romantic comedy, but it turns out it's about cannibalism.
I know. And
they've been shooting out there where I live.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think the whole thing's shot because Timothy Oliphant.
Drew Barrymore,
Timothy Oliphant, Tim Oliphant. If you ever, there's a great the Nerdist episode with who's the main guy from Deadwood, not Timothy's character, but the main bad guy who's amazing. Who plays the main character,
Yep.
Anyway, he talks about that the entire show was shot out there at the Saddle Ranch or whatever it was, the one that burned down. So the entire thing was based out there. So they're probably just doing the same thing. But it looks goofy fun. I don't know.
I think it looks...
Cannibal comedy, is that something you can maintain over episodes?
That's what I'm questioning, is how long can it go for? But it looked kind of Weeds-esque to me, where it's like a housewife in suburbia thrown into this kind of dark angle. And it's a comedy, but still has dramatic moments to it. Yeah. I'm excited to see what they do with it. I was intrigued by the plot. I'm glad to see Drew Barrymore kind of back in like a horror realm. And yeah, I'm interested to see what they did with it. And I didn't mention this when I was talking about our what we watched, so I'll just mention it briefly. Netflix just put up this British horror comedy TV show called Crazy Head that I've really been enjoying.
I watched the first episode. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's fun.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
XX is going to play at Sundance.
Yep.
I never watched trailers. I just watched it before the show started, and my son is in one shot of it. So that's the reason enough. He's in the trailer. So I was like, ooh, creepy kid. So that was cool.
And it's your creepy kid.
Yeah, it's cool. I've heard about a film that has been getting raves, but everyone says don't say anything about it, called Safe Neighborhood, with Virginia Madsen, home invasion film, and I've heard nothing but like, oh, this movie's electric, really great. So I don't know if that's something to look out for. And then one of the ones that's top of my list is called Personal Shopper with Kristen Stewart, and it's by a French director, Olivier Assayas, who's actually writing a Polanski film right now. He's made Demon Lover. He made an Asia Argento film at one point. He's kind of like art house in France, but he also strays towards like darker, weird material. This one's apparently, actually straight supernatural. She's a personal shopper for someone in France. Kristen Stewart is, and she can empathize with the dead or something like that.
Interesting.
It got a standing ovation at Cannes last year and is coming out soon. And, they say it is a horror film, but it's also in that way, those films where you go like, is this horror? So we'll be curious to see that one. And then one of friends of mine who wrote Siren, they had this one, I just saw some stills for it called Super Dark Times. And I think it's going to be like Evolution a little bit. No, what's our buddies who made Spring? What's their first film? Resolution. You know how that played at Tribeca, and it was like the small film that and Tribeca kind of launched it. It's got the same thing where it got into Tribeca, and that's going to be a first film, and it looked totally up my alley. It looked the total opposite of Siren. So it's like the serious kind of like indie. It looked great to me.
Groovy.
And then you got Eli Roth's Death Wish. Eli, I'm banking on you not to fuck this up with Bruce Willis.
If it wasn't Bruce, different story.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis when he cared.
So what do we think of the new Kong movie?
I'm stoked.
Yeah, I'm optimistic.
All in.
Because there's more than Kong. It's a bunch of
Island. You get a whole bunch of things.
Island, man.
Yeah.
It looks
step
fun.
closer to
It's
Godzilla
March 10th.
versus King Kong.
It looks like a blast, and I love the filmmaker who did a film called Kings of Summer, which, if you haven't seen, is a delightful indie.
That's the director?
Yes.
Wow. Hollywood is so weird now.
Delightful indie movie about it's a coming of age story, but it hit all the right beats for me. So
Hollywood's like, oh, here's an obscure love story western. Here's Pete's Dragon. You edited upstream color. Oh yeah, you direct Pete's Dragon. You're like, what? It's some of these decisions, but I love it because good movies are coming out of it.
Before M. Night shifted over to horror, he made Stuart Little. I think he wrote Stuart Little.
No, he wrote Stuart.
Yeah, that was it.
One, yeah.
Interesting. No, it is interesting this shift. So if you guys could only see one film this year, well, if one of those movies we've talked about, you're only going to get to see one right now. Push the button. Yeah. What would it be? I'd probably go Alien Covenant right now.
Yeah, I'd go Alien Covenant or The Predator if it
Actually,
happens.
you know what? I'd go It.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going It.
Nah.
It has such a such a I have a soft spot for it.
We've gotten a lot of Alien movies. We haven't gotten a lot of It's.
Yes.
But I gotta confess, I think the Suspiria reboot may get me just out of pure curiosity, just because I love the original so much. I feel that way about the Flatliners one too, where I'm like, I don't know if it needed to be remade, but I'm intrigued.
Well, Flatliners is it a remake or is it because I heard Kiefer's in it again.
It's a remake. Well, it's like a pseudo remake sequel.
See, I'm cool with that. If it's not a
sequel would be cool. Yeah, if
that's
he's
the thing. If he's the same character, then I'm all in.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Unless I love that.
But then is he just going to be like the kids? Don't try to bring your friends back from the dead. I told you so.
I hope. We can only hope.
So it's Friday the 13th. We're gonna wrap this up quickly.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about?
Well,
what
we've never
Friday
had
stuff?
Ryan on when we've talked about Friday the 13th
This is
movies.
true.
Yeah.
We've been doing these
Big
shows for a
Friday
long
fan.
time. I just want to know what your favorite one are, and it changes sometimes. I find every couple of years I really appreciate a different one. It's usually around the same 4 or so. But I'm just curious where you're landing these days.
I'm still on 4. 4 is still my favorite.
It's always part 6 for me.
Always.
I gotta say, guys, I like part 7. I know it's
I love 7
weird,
too.
but I've got a sweet spot for 7.
You are correct, Rob. That part 4 is the best film because Zita's on fire.
Why,
But,
thank you.
But I'm going to say I sometimes flip back to 3 because of what's her name, Dana Higgins' sweater.
Yeah.
The way she looks in that sweater sometimes tips that movie for
Dana
me.
Kimball?
Oh yeah.
Does
Or
she mean
character,
Larry
something.
Zerner?
Well, Larry's
Larry
afro's
Yeah,
amazing
Larry's
too.
afro
Amazing.
does.
But
Yeah.
3, I think, what was your first? And before I go,
No. Let's talk about this. This is
what
fun.
was your first Friday film? Because I feel like that somehow gets into your favorite. Because 3 was my first, so sometimes I feel like I came back to it because it was the first one I remember.
3 was my first as well, and I remember seeing it. It was on like USA Up All Night or something like that when I was a kid. And I remember seeing it and being like, what's up with that like weird paddle ball? Because they like do it at the camera for like a good 30 seconds. And I didn't understand that it was 3D and now being released on television.
And the weird missing rape scene.
Yes.
That's weird.
Oh,
The illusion.
But 3 was my first.
It's weird. My memory of it is hazy. But it's a blend of 4 and 6. It's a weird blend because I remember the Corey element of it, but then I also remember the bit where the kids are underneath the bunks in 6 and they go, well, what did you want to be when you grew up? And I was like, oh, these kids are going to get slaughtered and I'm their age.
That's funny.
So it's one of the two.
Man, I also have a vague memory of it, and believe it or not, because I love the middle parts of them. Like I'm not as big. I didn't grow up as big a fan of 1, 2, or 3. I was all 4. I loved 5. I loved 6. I loved 7. 7 was the first one I saw theatrically. But my memory is that I may have rented 5 first. That may have been the first one I saw. So I'm watching this and I'm hearing the voiceover of Tommy killing Jason, and my imagination is like, oh my god, as a kid he killed this guy, unbelievable. And you get to the end of it and obviously it's not Jason, so I know the legend of Jason, but he's not in it. I was like, I can't wait to see this guy because he's not even in this movie and he's amazing.
Rob,
So
this information explains you as a human completely. The fact that you saw 5 as your first Jason movie is just radical shit.
Really? Yeah.
that
And
is
then
so out there.
Then I went to 4, and then I'm like, oh, Jason's fucking scary. I get it. And then 6, because I wanted to get ready for 7, which is about to come out. And
I just remember he's so angry about 5 as a kid, like being like so betrayed.
I was all for it because I really
didn't
relate. Because
understand.
I was a shy and awkward kid, so I related to shy, awkward Tommy who didn't talk to anybody and everything. And then 7, I will say this: one of my favorite theatrical experiences ever was 7 because I was that horror nerd in high school that was so, it was 14, 15 or whatever, that was so excited for it. And obviously I'm not old enough to get in, and I got all the kids at school excited for it. So I had a group of like 10 kids that wanted to go see this thing. I somehow talked my guidance counselor into getting us in.
Oh, that's right. I
Oh
remember
my
you telling me
God.
about that. Yeah.
She met us with
That's
her
classic.
boyfriend.
That's
and
amazing.
was our guardian, and it was like she was like chaperoning like
That's like the
10
opening of a
kids.
Friday film.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
the kids
And-
going to the theater.
and again, that's why it stands out to me. Like, yeah, it's a little on the boring side, and the gore's gone. But for 14-year-old, you fill in the picture.
Right.
It was much gorier and much more awesomer, and he fights freaking Carrie at the end, and like we're just like cheering.
As a
That's
young
the
person, I
first
love that one too.
Yeah, that's
I
the
love that
first
one.
one I saw in the theater as well. And it's the one, like, I remember there's a party horn to the eye at
Yes.
some point, and
Yeah.
he picks up the sleeping bag and is like
Bernie
slamming
from
it
Weekend at
against the tree. It's just wonderful.
It's Leatherface all over again. If that had the gore in
Yeah.
there, I bet you it would be one of the best movies.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Leatherface too.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had no idea what was going on. I was
Yeah.
just glad I got to see one in the theater.
And I think
so.
we both would say to people in closing that they should give Jason Goes to Hell another chance.
Yes, in
The gorier
listen,
version.
read my article, Ryan, on its
I read it.
own,
I read it. You're
not
out of
as a
your mind.
Friday film.
You're out
And
of
we're
your
going to have
mind.
Adam Marcus on one of these days to talk about it.
You know what that reminds me of?
What?
Reminds me of a girl with ponytails trying to put a hot dog through a donut hole.
Happy Friday the 13th.
Happy Friday the 13th.
Well, I'll see you guys in 2-3
Oh,
weeks.
shit.
Going away.
Bye, guys.
This show will never survive.
Meanwhile, the
2 more
hook,
weeks.
the hook is literally pulling me off.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Sundance, so I won't be on the show for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll be at Sundance,
getting good intel.
hopefully getting good intel, hopefully seeing some good films, and I'll report back with what I
Making
see.
well, we have
Somebody
some good, exciting guests.
Yeah, we're
lined
not
up
going
while
to tell
you're
you who
gone.
next week is, but I will say Kong is king.